All right, everybody. Hey, gang, hold on for 1 second. If you are seeing us, that's not the one I want. We're just waiting for that to catch up. Hey, gang, let's see if you can see us out there. All right, gang, if you could see us live, could you please do me a favor? And can you tell us in the comments that you are seeing us live? That would be an amazing thing. Once we get that you guys are seeing us live, we're going to start this show officially. And guess what? I'm going to reopen that closed browser that I just shut because that's what happens technically. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm going to check your comments. And once I see those Ys, we're going to get this thing officially started. Steve Erdeman, you will see what's happening in just a second. All right, my friends. Sorry about that. Catching up. So we see. Going to head over here and make sure that this part is muted as well. All right, gang. Catching up. Sometimes the internet just loves to do its own funny little things. You know, Lucy, we were once in the middle of a show and we had like a major, like YouTube outage that happened. It was so bizarre. It literally happened like across the entire country. It was bizarre.
Oh dear.
All right. Fantastic. Look at all these people saying hello. I'm going to go over to the studio so we can say hi. Hello, everybody. Welcome to your creative journey. My name is Kevin Gregg. So glad to have you here with us. It's just me solo as the host tonight, but let me tell you a little bit about what's going on with Paul in just a second. This is the show that is designed to help you get your creative work done. Whether you're a writer, actor, singer, dancer, painter, musician, producer, heck, it doesn't matter. Even at this segment right now, Paul would tell me some crazy occupations that a creative would have. But whatever it is that you do, this is the show that is designed to help you get your creative work done. Paul is not here with us tonight. I got a call from him just before we went live. Unfortunately, his house has gotten hit by another round of the old cove, as he likes to say. So please keep the family in your prayers for some healing and stuff. More than anything else, it's just it's just a lot of inconvenience. That's for sure. Anyway, we're so glad to have you here. We've got awesome guests that join us here on the show, and I am so happy to have with us. Well, basically, she's an international creative consultant. She's a writer. She's a director. She's a creative director. She's an award-winning creative consultant. She's worked on tons of stuff that we will discuss. She's worked on the Olympics. She's worked for stuff regarding the Oscars, Super Bowl, World Series. Welcome to the show, Lucy Morra-Pedersen. Hi.
Thank you. Hello, everybody.
So glad to have you here. And thanks to our entire bunch of fans for joining us here tonight. I just want to give a shout out to Christina, Dari, Kelsey, Meryl. Glad to have you guys here. Queen Flora's here. Glad to have you here, everybody. Angelica, welcome. Welcome, everybody. So, Lucy, we got a lot to talk about tonight.
Okay.
We're going to say, Lucy and I just give you guys a little bit of background. Over the last several weeks, you've seen some people that have been joining me. I've been, fortunately, during this pandemic, it started something happening, which was to get to work with incredible creative people online. And Lucy is one of these people that our paths happened to cross working on projects together. Such a huge blessing. Now, the way that I met Lucy was I met her as a writer that was helping me on a project, and she was just knocking out of the park. But Lucy, you've got an extensive background here. How the heck did you get into a creative career? What was it that sort of sparked your interest? How did you fall into this? Let's say that.
Because I'm not a mathematician or an accountant or anything like that. Creative is the only path for me, Kevin. So, pretty young. I remember wanting to figure out, you're in grade 13 at the time in high school. And going, what am I going to do? I don't know. Yeah. And my mom wanted me to become a lawyer or a doctor. That was never going to happen ever.
Yeah.
And I kind of started looking at things and I thought, you know what, I'd love to work for an ad agency and write jingles, or so I think I could do that. I don't know
Were you a
why.
big fan? Were you a big fan of television and all that before?
Oh
Or
yeah,
no?
I'm a TV junkie. I really, really am. My TV is
Well,
always on, no matter what's happening. It's always
okay. Well, now let's get this. What are your favorite shows that you're watching right now, or what were some of your favorite shows when you were growing up that you were just like, I can't miss these?
so watching right now. I'd say This Is Us in New Amsterdam and The Resident. So those are three of my favorite.
Okay,
As a kid growing up, oh my goodness. I like comedies a lot. So,
sure.
things like Seinfeld and
Oh yeah.
Friends. And yeah, I'm pretty mainstream. And then I'm also completely opposite, where I like a lot of HGTV and,
Yeah.
a lot of reality. 90 Day Fiance is my guilty pleasure that I can't seem to stop watching.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, but I am a total TV junkie. Usually when people name a show, I'm like, oh, I've seen about 5 minutes of that at least. Right.
I'm
So
going to tell you, man, it's something, especially when I was growing up. I haven't been watching full episodes of it, but on YouTube, I've been having a lot of these Cheers clips pop back up for me,
I
from
love Cheers.
NBC.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, man. And I will tell you something that I have been pining for, uh, Harry Anderson clips from when he would play Harry the Hat on that. Now, Harry Anderson was on Night Court, and I've
Hmm.
been pining to watch Night Court. I
I
used to
love
love,
night courts.
I'm telling you, man, did you, now you're up in Canada, but did
Yeah.
you guys have must see TV? Because when down here in United States,
Yeah.
Thursday nights, NBC must see TV. It was
Yeah.
The Cosby Show, Family Ties, Cheers, and Night Court. Man, that was just like, oh, couldn't get enough of it.
I tell you, we have an interesting thing because we're close to the border. So
Mhm.
we get all of the seepage in that comes in from NBC, ABC, CBS, and Fox.
Right.
But the interesting thing about the Canadian broadcasting is we get to cherry pick all the shows from all the different networks and we put them on one network.
Ooh.
So you may have to watch 3 different networks to watch them. At one point, when CTV, which is the network I worked for,
Sure.
was such a powerhouse, we had everything on one, like CSI,
Wow.
Desperate Housewives, Grey's Anatomy,
What
Dexter, all of that was on our network. So you could come to one-stop shop and you'd be able to watch them all.
Was it one channel? Is it one channel that people are coming to?
Yeah, one network.
Gosh.
So we were a network, but the main
Okay.
network, or the main channel, which was our entertainment channel,
Yeah.
all of those properties: Sopranos, Dexter, The Voice, American Idol, all of those were properties that we promoted because that was
Wow.
our schedule. So we had a powerhouse schedule for sure.
That is crazy.
Yeah,
You just
yeah,
get all of that stuff onto one thing. My
yeah.
gosh,
It was
man.
pretty cool for sure. ER,
Unbelievable.
they were all on our network. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
So so here's the thing. So you thought to yourself, here you are, you're back in high school and you're
Mm.
thinking, gosh, what the heck am I going to do? You
Yeah.
know? And
Yeah.
then so all of a sudden you say, well, maybe I could start doing jingles for commercials or work for an ad agency. What do you do? How did you go? Did you go that path? Yes.
Well, so what I did was I applied for creative advertising
Mhm.
at a few different colleges. And one of the colleges I applied for radio and television broadcasting because they wanted a portfolio. And I really, quite frankly, didn't have any work in the field at that point.
Right.
And so I got into the various ones, but the one I really wanted to go, the creative advertising, a friend and I both didn't get into that one for whatever reason. So
Right.
we showed up at Seneca College, which I'm so happy we did at that point. And she got into creative advertising. And I guess I had put myself in for radio and television. So we ended up in 2 completely separate courses, going to 2 different orientations. She's like, what's happening?
Yeah.
And then she ended up moving on and going to become a teacher. So completely different path. And I stayed in radio and television and loved every second of it. So
Really?
it's interesting sometimes how life will just kind of guide you to where you're meant to be.
I'm going to tell you, I've told this on the show. I originally thought that I was going to be going into graphic arts. I thought that was the direction I was going to go in. And I put down the wrong thing on my college application.
Right?
I ended up putting in theater arts, and then I ended up getting accepted that way. I went, all right, I guess I'm going to go this way, So you never know what curveball is going to come your way,
Yeah. You haphazardly fall into something unexpectedly. That seems to be me. That's very much who I am. So yeah.
So here you go. So you're basically, you kind of get thrown into I would say the deep end of the pool with really learning the creative side, but a lot of business that's involved in it at the same time, right? I mean,
Yes.
did you find, I mean, it feels like those two things are thrown at you right away. You probably get into something to say, hey, I want to be creative, but in the meantime, you've also had people saying, hey, we've also got to sell widgets. How do we make that happen?
Yeah. And in Canada, we're heavily regulated by what's the CRTC, which is our governing body there.
Okay.
So we actually have to have a certain amount of Canadian content that runs every day, a certain amount of commercials that have to be Canadian running during the shows. You can only promote. They got really creative after a while, because you have to promote a lot of Canadian things, Canadian content. So it started being, here's a Desperate Housewife 25-second promo with a 5-second, don't forget to watch Corner Gas, just to make it Canadian. So there's lots of workarounds, and there's a lot of that happening. So we had to be up on the rules and what we could and couldn't do. And so it was an interesting dynamic. And as I moved up the echelons, when I was creative director, there was a lot of that. As a producer, I like to push the envelope and have some fun and put some racier things in my promos. But when I started actually approving, I was the complete opposite. And oh, you take that out. We can't do that. Right. So it was very interesting to see what side of the table I was on. If I was producing, I was pushing that envelope as far as I could.
Yes.
Once I was approving, I was making sure that we had to make sure we stayed to standard. And,
I think it's such an important thing with a creative to understand, to at least get an idea what it's like on both sides of the table.
Yeah.
Remember that of being a performer and then also being a director, or even being we've had a couple of stage managers on the last couple of times, like even getting the idea of like, hey, what's it like when you're actually building this thing and putting this thing together? Because it puts your mindset in terms of seeing the entire picture, right? I think it's very easy on a creative side. I'll only speak from my experience. Maybe you've had a different experience, but it's really easy to get stuck in an echo chamber with a lot of creatives that are just, they're rallying against like, this person's holding us back. We got it. And then you get on the other side and you go, oh yeah, we've only got, X amount of dollars, or we actually need to see a return on this. I've seen it go. I actually had to describe really well by somebody that I knew, an extended family member, who talked about he worked with both, it was advertising for businesses with what it was like it was the creative and the business side. Okay. And he says, they're either veering to one side or the other. He said it's very rare that he's found I think he once described like a cereal company seemed to get that right balance of like going, great, they get to be creative and they're taking care of the business aspect of it. But if you go too far into the business, you end up squashing any creativity out of it to where it all just gets very bland or dry, or you're trying to appease everyone. Or I've seen it on the other side. I've seen where people go incredibly creative and off the wall to where people go, this is just kind of art for art's sake. I'm not interested in this. I'm not going to go watch it,
I couldn't agree with you more. I also find there's not too many, usually creatives that I've come across are either super creative, but they don't like to follow process and organization, right? They just want to play. So it's very interesting when you find that. And there's a few people I've come across that can do both. And that's an interesting dynamic, because usually there's one side or the other, and you have to rein them in. And you're right. They want to play. They want to do their thing. It's all about the art. And you look and go, yeah, but you still have to stay within a set of guidelines to be able to create that art.
Lucy, do you think that there's a way to I hate to use the word train, but do you think that there's a way to kind of teach that skill to creatives?
You know what? I think so. I think it's an interesting thing. I think A, they have to be open to it, and B, then there has to be, it's all about process at that point. You don't have to feel like it's killing your artistic sense. It's actually going to help you in the end, because the more honed down, it helps you in creating as well, right? Like when I used to go into an edit suite when I first started out, I didn't understand how much preparation I should be doing to get in there so that the edit goes quickly, right? Because
Oh gosh.
you can waste days trying to
Oh.
cut even just a minute of content, you know?
Mm-mm-mm.
And so because we were our turnaround was crazy. We'd get, a Grey's Anatomy in at 9:00 in the morning, and by 1:00 we had to have our promo ready for all of the affiliates to feed it out, right? So
wow, yeah.
so because we were on such a tight deadline, we became very, very, very honed down at making sure that we could cut a promo like that, but we went in very organized. So we were, making sure that we had all of our shots ready to go, all of our storyline ready to go, option B ready to go in case it went up the line and they didn't want that storyline promoted at that point. So we had to switch gears, right?
Wow.
We had our voiceover person standing by. At first, we had the voiceover person that was only in Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we had to pre-write our scripts for Tuesday and Thursday and really hope that the content came in and matched what we wrote, right? So there was a lot. So I'd say, tight deadlines helps you to become a lot more organized.
Okay.
You have to, by virtue of the fact that you've got to get that tied down very quickly.
Is there a moment that you can remember that was like one of the bigger learning moments for you that was like oh my gosh, and just like, I can't believe I'm not getting fired for this, but grateful that you had that moment, like the shaking of the knees and going, oh no, what have I done?
Yeah. Yes. Years ago when the Blue Jays won the World Series, this was before my producing days. So I was like scheduling commercials. And at the time, I think one spot was like $60,000. And I scheduled 3 spots wrong in the World Series. Right? Oh my God. Panic. The World Series ran. I saw them run. I was like, oh my God, there was no changing it. It went. And I for sure thought they were going to fire me. I thought, come on, that's $180,000. Like, they're going to fire me.
Yeah.
And they were, you know what? Thank God they were just, okay, well, mistakes. I went in and I told them, they didn't even know. I just said, listen, I noticed and I scheduled them incorrectly. And it was a very easy way to schedule it incorrectly, to be quite honest, because it comes down to a set of rack numbers and I put in the wrong number. Doesn't matter because you're not supposed to do it. And at the end of it all, I was just mortified. I didn't know what was going to happen. And they had said to me, you know what, the fact that you came to us and allowed us to be able to be preventive now with the client and come, and they gave them a bunch of make good spots. So a bunch of, spots that they had in high priority shows that were not sold out at the time anyhow. And they made it good that way. And so I felt very fortunate. I've had a lot of fortune with that company over and over again with different things, but that by far was the day that I thought I'm done, and very lucky, and very early in my career too. So it's very lucky.
Can I tell you though, like what an incredible thing to just be able to just own up to it. I mean, it's so scary, right? I think that sometimes we get so trapped in a cycle of like going, I can't show that I made a mistake. I can't show that I made a mistake, or I need to figure out a way to hide this, or I need to figure out a way to ignore it, or to go, I don't know. Right. I just remember years ago, working with Disney, and you'd work with some challenging people in technical departments. I remember once, one of the biggest problems that we used to have continuously on the show, we'd have some really incredible techs that they'd really be trying to troubleshoot stuff and going, what went wrong? How can I make this better? And then you just have other people that I remember once in the middle of a show, like all of our audio stuff went over. And I remember I looked over at the tech to just go, what? And all I saw him do was just go, just put up his hands and go, I don't know.
That's always helpful, eh?
Yeah. And then later just never recorded it or never reported it to anyone. So people would come in the next day and just go, what the heck's going on? And there would be no, we have to workshop this stuff. I think that people get so afraid of like going, I just feel like it's the only way that you get to the bottom of it, to figure out like, hey, let's figure out what went upside down and how to make sure that either that doesn't happen or what do we learn from it. It's such an important thing. And believe me, I've had my moments, right? I've had those moments. The company that we've been working with, I remember doing, pitches where I went, let's go for this. And all of a sudden the entire pitch comes off the rail. And I am just like sweaty armpits and just going, okay, that didn't work, and you just have to sort of own up to it and go, all right, how do we learn from that and move forward?
I think that's something I've learned through the years. You have to know that you're going to fail. You're not going to be successful at everything you do, but you've at least got to try and then just see where you land. But yeah, absolutely be prepared to take responsibility. I think things go much smoother. And if they had fired me at that point, did I deserve it? I made a mistake. I made an honest mistake, but it was a huge mistake. So I was prepared and they were lenient on me and, fine with the fact that I brought it to their attention. And I was quite young. I was in my 20s. So boy, oh boy, did I make a mistake real young with a big company. But, they were fine. And they just looked and said, okay, they weren't great. Like, oh yeah, that's fantastic. Right. But it was, listen, mistakes happen and it's okay. And you've owned up to it and we'll figure it out.
Good on your leadership, man.
Yeah.
Good on your leadership, because 100%. That is that moment of like going, okay, we have some talent, we have some potential here, and let's try to grow from this. I've got to give a shout out here. We've got Kids Imagination, which means Aaron and Rachel. They've been joining us, and Rachel just said this. This is so interesting. Thank you, Lucy. So look at that. You're making an impact on our audience. I'll tell you.
Oh, that's so sweet.
So let's dive into this, because I do want to dive into part of this with a thing.
Okay.
It is not. This has been sort of one of the themes that has continued with this show as we have done it with Paul. We always like peeling back a little bit, because I think that a lot of people, it's one of the things that's always frustrated me about looking at other people as they've been doing the creative process, that it seems like everything is so easy.
Right? Yeah, bed of roses, right? Yeah.
Right. It seems like everything comes really, really easy. But we know that there's challenges that happen along the way. So, and we've talked about little things here that have happened with, not little things, but like $180,000 mistakes. What are some challenges that you faced along the way in your career that you just kind of go, holy, and I'll tell you, I'll be first on the mat with this, which listeners to the show know as well. I've talked about it before in the show where, early in my career, I ended up getting, diagnosed with cancer, where I had to kind of I had to work around that, fortunately it was, treatable and heal. I was able to get healed from that, but man, what a blind side. And then, a couple of years later, having a son with autism, where you go, wow, holy smokes, how do we juggle this as well at the same time? So and again, I don't put this out there as to go, my attitude about a lot of this stuff is not, it's not like saying, hey, I'm Pollyanna, everything's like puppies and unicorns, but it's like life also happens along the way while we're trying to do this. So I open that up to you to say, have you had some hiccups along the way? Have you?
I certainly did. There was a time in my life where it just felt like there was just a dark cloud. I lost my mom in 2000 in a car accident. And then the following year, actually later that year, my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer and he was recovering. And then my husband passed away unexpectedly, very quick. And so it was just a year and a half of just devastation. And just, I remember thinking when my husband passed away, I was like, it's like someone just kind of cut my legs off and said, now run a marathon.
What happened? What happened specifically with your husband? Was it a heart attack?
No, he got what they called a bacterial infection and he went into sepsis. So his body started shutting down and within 36 hours, he was just gone.
Wow.
And he went from that day, he was helping his parents move some stuff. He was watching, his wrestling on TV. He just wasn't feeling great. And then all of a sudden started not feeling well and went to the hospital. Within a few hours, I'm going to say about 5 or 6 hours, they finally pinpointed what was going on and said that he was probably not going to make it. And I was like, what? Right. And he was 34, a young man, right?
My gosh.
This can't be happening. And I said to them, listen, I just lost my mom last year. This can't be happening. There's no way.
Right.
not
It's like a
losing them.
demand. It's like a, hey, this is a hard line. Okay. No way.
Yeah, not happening. And I said, just tell me what I have to do. What do I do? And we'll do it. And they just said, pray as hard as you can because he needs a miracle, which was, pardon? Right. And so, and, you know, watching someone's heart stop in front of you, the person you love the most, was just devastating. Picking up the pieces after that was near to impossible. Yeah. I got very fortunate of some key people in my life that were there to support me. And then my workplace, I shout out to the senior VP that was working at the time, Rick Luchuk, who I will never, ever, ever forget and be forever indebted to, just looked at me and said, you take whatever time you need. And it literally was, take whatever time you need. So I took 6 weeks and I came back and 9/11 happened.
Oh my
God. And I work in a TV station. So every monitor, everybody was focused on that. I was like, there are people flying planes into buildings. There's no way. And I went into him and said, listen, Rick, I gotta go. I don't have words right now. I gotta go. And he just said, okay. Right. And you take as much time as you need and whatever you want. And so I took a leave of absence at that point, a sick leave. I was like, I can't. And he just, I'll never forget, because I was like, bye. And he said, I'll see you soon. I said, bye. And he said, you know, we'll be calling you for a coffee. And if anybody ever bothers you about anything other than just seeing how you're doing, I want to be the next phone call.
Yeah.
Incredible. So he gave me, like, I took another 6 months. So I was off. My husband passed in July, went back for 9/11. Then I was off until January. Came back and, you know, your legs are like Jello walking back in. I don't know what to say to anybody. And slowly integrated. And Rick was my rock there that just understood somehow that I needed time. And I needed the time I needed. And he was fine. And so speaking of, you know, how you said earlier, you know, you've had one of those moments where you're looking, I don't know what I'm doing here. And so during that time, I was in a fog. It was just horrible. And I remember I came back at one point. So May of every year, the end of May, beginning of June, was our sales presentation, which is 60% of our sales go into these trailers that we're selling to everybody to be able to, you know, buy their commercial time.
Yeah, right.
And so they gave me a show to do. And he's, you know, no pressure, but once you come back, there's pressure. You got to get it done.
Of course, you got right. Once you've gone that long, there's just that feeling of like, I got to prove I'm supposed to be here.
Right. I'm here to do a job. And I just couldn't. Right. There was one show we had that was Everwood, where this husband had just lost his wife and all of this. And so I was like, I can't do that. But I told the producer, this is exactly how you need to promote it. And I went step by step and said, you need to promote it. So they gave me a different show called, I actually took my own. I said, I'm going to do Boomtown. It's all, you know, crime and whatever, fine. And my God, I sat there and I had nothing. There was nothing in the tank for days. And I'm trying to do something. I thought, this is just the biggest piece of I've ever seen. No matter what I'm doing, nothing's working. And Rick came in. I'll never forget. 3 days later, every day he'd come in, Boomtown, and I'm like, no. It's like, okay, I'll catch you tomorrow. Next day, Boomtown. I'm like, no, it's not ready. Okay. Third day, Boomtown. I'm like, no, it's really. And he said, let's take a look. Right. So, I just put my head down. I'm like, so I showed him, and he went, okay, keep working on it. And he walked out, and it was horrible. Horrible. But I appreciated that there was not the pressure of, listen, you got to, you know, do this right. And then I went home and I worked on it that night, and I came up with an idea. And I came in the next day and I said, okay, to the editor, I know what we're going to do now. And we went and did it. He came in later that day and said, how are we doing? I said, well, I've got something different to show you today. He said, okay. Played it. And he said, there she is. He said, awesome. We're going to screen it for the CEO when he comes down in a few hours. Okay. So be ready to go. I'm like, and then the CEO came, and I got very lucky. He's like, I love it. Now that's our tagline, and we're going to promote it like this. So I was very fortunate that in the 11th hour, I guess I managed to pull it off. I didn't think I would. And if I didn't, I really don't think it would have been a problem either, to be honest with you, Kevin. That was just the person that he was. And he just understood, give her time. And I'm very grateful. And there's nothing I can say to compensate for something like that, other than a thank you, which seems very little for the impact that it had on my life.
You know what? There's a couple things that I want to comment on.
Sure.
Number one, it seems as if Rick is this fellow's name, right? This guy that was, yeah. It really seems like Rick definitely served as the model for what you could do or I could do for others that come, that come after us. You know what 100%. I mean? Like that type of example of that leadership. And I'll have to tell you, that sort of loving, strong leadership, I'm sure that you've had it in your career. I've had it in mine. Different types of leadership styles that you run into. We've all run into, like, the screaming, yelling, threatening boss, the you better or else, right? Mm-hmm. And then you run into people like Rick in your life and you go, I'll do whatever you need me to do, man. Yes. I'm there for you. And and I will tell you, the things that I've learned over the years from the screaming, yelling, threatening bosses, there's even a blessing that happens in that, to go, thank you for showing me what I will never do to others. Right. 100%. But the fact that you had this person that just sort of knew and trusted, and to be able to guide you through that, man, what a huge blessing. And the other thing that I wanted to comment on too is, as you're talking about the boomtown, putting together this trailer for this thing where you're just going, I don't have this. I don't have this. I don't have this. And how many times did I have run into this on projects that I have been working on too, where you're just looking at and just going, yep, nope, not going to crack this, not going to crack this, not going to crack this. And there's something that happens where there's sort of a softening, or I have found this recently for myself. There's some stuff that I'm working on where I feel like I can't, I've had moments where I feel like I can't crack the code on it. I can't crack the code. And so I've started going back to some of my basics, which are, some of my basics are, well, let's get out the old notebook and pen to paper, right? And just start writing, right? And there's been a number of times where I've been, all of a sudden, I just had this happen today and yesterday as well. I'm writing something that was completely unrelated to the project I was working on, and realized, oh, there's a connection right there, right? And just like doing the physical action of showing up and doing the writing, and just sort of getting into, I guess, for lack of a better word, kind of getting into the flow state, where all of a sudden it's just like things unlock and you go, oh, there it is. It's so much easier than I thought, Yeah.
So true.
Oh my gosh. It's a wonderful epiphany that happens because we get so stuck, right? We just think this idea of like, I got to get it perfect. I got to get it right. I got to get it perfect. If I don't knock it out of the, and just approaching things with this, like a genuine experimental mindset, not the goofy play, right? But like going, let's try this. Let's see if this works. Okay, that didn't work. We learned something. Let's try something else. Okay, that didn't work. And yes, we have to have parameters on it, because we usually have a ticking clock, or there's, only so much limited funds that you can work with.
Sure.
But you have to approach it that way, Yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more. Sometimes the best ideas come out of desperation, right? If you wait long enough, and I think you got to take the pressure off.
Yes.
There's like a pressure release valve that has to happen to just allow things to flow. But I think what you're saying, when you started writing about something completely unrelated, but you're getting the creative juices flowing, I find a lot of things happen that way, because if you're too focused, you're oftentimes not going to do your best work at that point.
It won't. It's like you're holding on to something. It's like you got to release it a little bit so it flows. Yes, some stuff will escape from you, but you're also allowing something to flow in as well. It's a heck of a process. It's a heck of a process. Right. One more thing that I want to ask you about this period that you had in your life as well. I mean, obviously you had an incredible support system that was around you at the time to get through it.
Yeah.
Is there anything that sort of happened to you during that time period? I know that sometimes in the past, when I've had difficult seasons or tragedy or stuff that's been happening, I kind of throw myself back into work. How do you get creative? How do you get creative in a season? How do you get creative in a season of sadness? how do you get creative in a season that's just like, I'm dry. I really feel like I'm really hurting here. I'm really hurting. I really feel I'm still healing, but yet I still have to show up. What the heck did you do?
It was, I did take some time for sure, but there was a few things. So the interesting thing there, Kevin, that I don't think I've ever told you. So when my husband passed away, my first husband's name was Mario. And we had brought, for the service and for the viewing and everything, the priest was supposed to come. Father Carlo was supposed to come. Well, Father Carlo got sick that night. I'm like, oh, great. Who's this guy that just showed up now, right? And he walks in and I was very angry. I'd lost my mom, lost my husband. I'm like, I'm done. I was my spirit was broken.
Yeah.
And he walked in and he said, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, Father Carlo's not well. My name is Father Mario. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
Can I tell you? And that's about the only thing that could have been said for me to pop my eyes up and look and go, seriously, seriously. And Father Mario has been in my life now for 20 years because he is, for me, the most incredible spiritual advisor I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And he walked in and he said this whole beautiful words, and then said, I will be here if anybody we're Catholic, if anybody wants confession at any point in time, I'm going to stay here for the rest of the night. And I just ran after him. I was just drawn to him like a magnet. And I went in and I said, Father, listen, I'm the wife, and oh my God, my dear, I'm so sorry. And, and he was just like, you're very much like the Mother Mary right now, who had to watch her son die on the cross, right? Like death is horrible. There's nothing good at this. It's horrible. And you're suffering. You're hell on earth right now. So there was no sugarcoating, everybody, oh, it's going to get better. No sugarcoating whatsoever. No. He was like, it's horrible and it's going to be horrible. And, and so that little ray that he gave me, and I remember him saying to me as I was talking to him throughout the months that were going on, I said, I got nothing. Like, I just got nothing. And he just kind of looked and said, I'm going to give you some advice. Don't read right now. Don't do that. Like, start looking at pictures, buy yourself an art book and just look at art.
Yeah.
Be one more with nature, right? Because I love nature. I love that. So, take some walks, do that kind of stuff. Don't do anything that's challenging right now. Just give yourself the opportunity to marvel at the wonders that we take for granted every day, right?
Yeah.
A beautiful sunset, a stroll by the lake. So that really, actually, Kevin, was fantastic advice for me because it helped. And it helped for me to start appreciating the beauty again and the simplicity that we overlook every single day. It gave me that pause, and then gave me eventually the passion to be able to want to go on. But, so many people in my lives that touch my friends, family, strangers that would suddenly approach me and just start talking to, I don't know why, just start talking to me for some reason. And, so I believe there's angels here on earth that are helping you through if you're open to it.
Yep.
And then there's, your inner circle of people that if you can let them into your heart, that they'll kind of carry you along at that point. Right. And so very blessed.
I'm just, Lucy, I'm so glad that you just shared all of that, because honestly, I'm Catholic as well. And I truly do believe that that's part of this journey. I was just talking to a friend of mine about this the other day. We go through, and obviously you went through one of them, but we go through desert periods in our life. A friend of mine described it very well, is sometimes you just have those moments where you just go, I don't feel it. Like, I don't feel like, I feel empty, or I don't feel God's presence, or there's so much crap that's happening in my life, or I'm in such a dark period. And I think that you're so right about that. I think that God does. This is why I think it's so important to have fellowship with other people, that has been created. And to your point, that sometimes you get, honestly, I think it's the Holy Spirit, whether you have these people that come up and talk to you and you have these moments and go, what is going on here?
Yeah.
Or how many times have I been in a situation for myself, either not wanting to go to mass or not go to a meeting that I'm supposed to go to, and I don't want to go there. And then all of a sudden I hear something and just go, that's directly for me, right? Like, it's directly for me.
Yeah.
But there's something that happens in that process, I believe, and so I'm not going to get too philosophical on this. This will be coming in the next few months, guys, with some show stuff I'm working on. But I do believe this. I don't believe that God causes injury and pain. I don't think that he wants that. Mm-hmm. But I do know that in those moments that he understands what that pain is. And there's an invitation that's there, an invitation to invite him in or to other people in. And there's something that happens in that deepening and in that growth, which is far, far deeper and serves as a huge foundation for the bigger stuff that we're supposed to be doing. And I'll tell you the truth, it makes it more beautiful, right? It makes it more beautiful in the long run. That doesn't mean it's it's not rainbows and unicorns as we go through it.
Life is peaks and valleys, right? So those valleys can be very dark and very difficult, but if you can find a way to keep that focus and that sense of something good will start coming. Yeah. You got to have at least hopefully you keep your faith. You keep some faith in tomorrow, some faith in, if it's not faith in God, because not everybody feels that way, some faith in better is still coming. For me, the faith that I have in God is one of the things that carried me through. And then Father Mario happened to be the person that married me the second time. So it's very interesting, right? My husband converted to Catholicism because of Father Mario. Like, you look and go, it's just weird. And he's almost a comedian. So he's a wonderful blessing in my life too. So I feel very blessed with a lot of things, but it's easy also, Kevin, to fall into those valleys again, right? So it's important to try to keep your spirit uplifted no matter what's going on. And that's just what you try to do.
You just have to. So here's the big question.
Sure.
You didn't stay in television, right? I mean, you didn't stay in that aspect of television in terms of the producing and all that stuff. What have been the changes that have happened for you? I definitely want to we were talking a little bit before we went live on this, but what are some of the shifts that happened for you? Obviously you're doing editing and creating, and then you're getting into sort of a production side of it. At some point, was there a point where you said, I'm jumping off and I'm going independent? Was there anything like what was that for you, and how has that been for you?
Sure. So I'm a person that I kind of need a nudge. Life guides me. I found that out. And so when I was at CTV, eventually they packaged me out. And, the emotion behind that day was difficult because they decided for whatever reason to just walk us out the door. And
was it a number of people that happened?
There was very few. There was about 4 of us. So that surprised me as well.
Wow.
And just the amount of dedication, listen, things had changed over, a different company took over. I kind of knew that could be coming, but I didn't think it was going to be this finite little group and that I was part of that. And I looked and went, okay. And I didn't like the way I felt that day. I really thought, you know what? I came in this morning ready to do a job, and here I am. And it was the last thing, Kevin, for me that was still left of my old life. So that was a problem for me too. So it was a whole emotional roller coaster for me at the time. And I remember coming home and saying, I never want to feel that feeling again, ever. Yes. And so, it took me a few months. Thankfully, I got a package, so it was fine. Took me a few months, and I looked at my husband and said, what do you think about opening a photo booth rental company? I don't know why, Kevin. I'm not a picture taker. I don't like being in pictures. I was looking up stuff of, low point of entry, but, fun and whatever. So, and he, my husband's great because he's like, sure, why not? And so we researched it, we opened it up, and let me tell you, it's completely, now I always stayed in the freelance side. So I was always, writing or producing or shooting stuff. So there was always that on the side. So that became my side gig. Yeah. And the photo booth was my main thing. And the great thing about that was you had no idea how many people you're going to meet. All the different companies you're working with. And you know what the best part was? Nobody was ever angry. You'd walk in and people are like, hey, photo booth people. Suddenly everybody's happy. Not the people that are in corporate that are upset all the time. So it was a nice little break of, let's just go and have fun. And you're helping people make memories. So it was always, it's fun. And it was a great business. It still is, but it's gone dormant right now during COVID.
Of course.
Right? Especially in Canada. I know you're in the States, but in Canada, there's been lockdown after lockdown after lockdown.
Right. You can't get anything done. Holy smokes.
Yeah. So I think we've done one event in 2 years. So it's like,
Oh my
okay.
gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So we kind of looked at each other and went, well, I guess the business is dead right now. What are we going to do? So we pivoted. My husband went back to doing stuff that he was doing before. I went back. I then made a more robust attempt at, you know what, I'll freelance more and I'll do more things. And because of COVID and everybody going virtual, someone like me became a little more in demand, shall we say, right? Because I was already set up. I didn't have to scramble and get a home office and figure out how to do things virtual. I was set up. So it was an easy transition of, oh, well, how long have you been doing virtual? I'm like, 10 years. So it was a very easy transition of, I think, people looking, and I had a service that I could fulfill. And Knowledge Hook was one of those. Where you think I ever would have thought I'd be involved with a math company? Never. I can't. Oh, we won't even talk about my horrible math skills. But so to be dealing with mathematicians is quite humorous, but that just tells you anything can happen in life.
Of course.
Right? Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I love it because when we were talking earlier, it's like, this thing that you'd already been set up, and it's weird how it happens, right?
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden you've been doing this thing. And when you look at it, I don't want to say, take a look at in the past, it's 2020 hindsight, right? Yeah. But like you see sort of the pieces that fall together, and also just having that adaptability to go, okay, this has happened. What's next? Right. Yeah. And learning, I will have to say this, please, anybody that's listening to the show or watching the show, please be always trying to improve yourself on a daily basis. That's what I'd mainly say. I'm not saying about like trying to learn everything. I don't think that you should be exhausting yourself. You should find those things that interest you and intrigue you, but you should be like learning about it, right? Like this is what this show has been all about. I've been doing podcasts on and on since 2009, but even going into the live streaming part of it or learning how to do all that stuff, it's like, I got to learn this as I'm going, right? What's the next thing that I can find out? What's the next thing that I can grow on? And you got to do that because you never know what curveball is going to come your way. I think that there's something, Brad Pitt says it in World War Z, right? He says in Spanish, which I can't say, but it's like movement is life, right? He's talking to a guy that's in their apartments. I think that they're in Mexico City. I'm not sure where they are, right? So he's like flown in and he's in these things, and he happens to run into this family that's like they've holed up in these apartments, and they've sheltered down and hunkered down because they think that they're going to be safe from the zombies there. And he just looks at he looks at the father, and he just tells him movement is life, because that's it. Because he knows that if he stays there, that was actually a very interesting thing. The book The Road by Cormac McCarthy, that's a pretty heavy book, right? They did a movie of it with Viggo Mortensen. And it's a heavy book. Spoiler alert on a book that's 20 years old. But it's all taking place in a post-apocalyptic world. Something has happened. There's been some sort of nuclear thing. And this story follows a father and a son as they're doing like this cross-country trek, just trying to find like civilization or stay alive. And there's one part that happens about midway in the book where the father and son discover a underground bunker that someone had bedding and clothing and food and all this other stuff. And it's just like, it's wonderful. It's like, it's down there. They get to go down. They've got lanterns, heaters, all this stuff. It's cozy. Cormac McCarthy does a great job in the book. He describes the kid, it tells you what type of society they're in. The dad happens to pop open a can of Pepsi. The kid has never had soda in his life because of all this stuff that's happened over the last several years. And so I remember this part in the book where it was just like, they're so comfortable and they've got all this food that will last them probably for years. Mm-hmm. And the father makes a decision in the book to say, all right, gather together stuff and we got to get going. And I remember when I was reading it, I was going, why are you leaving this? This is perfect. Mm-hmm. But the father has the right idea, because the father has the right idea, which is to go, we can enjoy this for a while we're here. But if we get too used to this, and if we stay here, we'll get too used to it, and a couple of things will happen. We'll either eventually get attacked by someone else, or we're eventually going to get so comfortable, and then we're going to run out of food, and then that'll be it, you know?
Right.
And so there's that part in the book where they get all the stuff into a cart and then move on. And that was a click that happened for me, which is like, oh, right. We're not supposed to get to these moments where we go, well, this is it. I'm nice and comfortable. I've got everything I need, right?
Yeah.
Because it also causes atrophy. We're supposed to be continuing to move and to grow and to strive, you know? And you can do it in a refreshing and transformative way. But anyway, just a thought. Just a thought.
True. I always say, if I'm not learning, then I'm going to be dead, because you learn every day as long as you're open to it. And I find I'm more of a scholar now than I ever was growing up.
Yeah.
I love to just look things up and understand how things work, and yeah,
it's so
figure
good.
things out for myself.
I dig it.
Yeah.
What are the plans for you in the near future right now? What's sort of on the horizon for you? What's in your sights?
I'm really enjoying the new virtual everywhere. Like, I love it now because there's a lot more opportunities. So I'm not sure, Kevin, this past year I did commercials, I did some video shoots, I did, things like Knowledge Hook with the workshops. And so honestly, for this next little ride, I'm hoping to just continue doing that and expanding a little more and see where that takes me.
I dig it.
Yeah. And from different places if possible, right? Like right now I'm in Florida, so look and go. It's pretty cool to be able to work from different places if you can.
I love it, man. It is like
I highly
a whole new
recommend
world.
it.
It's so weird. I've done the same thing too, like directing video shoots and stuff, and you're like directing remotely. It's like crazy. It's crazy.
It is crazy, but it's pretty fun.
Can you move into this area? Can you do this? Doing it all. It's unbelievable. Lucy, an absolute joy and a pleasure to have you on the show.
Right back.
Thank you.
It's always so nice to talk to you.
I know. It's a joy. We have plenty of fun when we get together and we write. I'm going to give Lucy the big shout out. She is a marvelous writer. I will tell you that. She has saved my bacon on stuff. Lucy's, we've been working on some math projects together, and holy smokes, you're unpacking like deep stuff. And then I'll toss it over to Lucy and just say, please, I've been looking at this too long. Can you make this sound human and relatable, please?
But I have the fun part of the job, Kevin, because if I had to do the academia side of things, there's no way. So you get to take that steak and season it and everything, and then I just get to go put some sizzle on it. So it's a lot of fun for me, and thank you for all that you do to make my job just the fun part and easy.
It is my pleasure. May we work many, many years together.
I
for
hope
sure.
So.
Know, amazing.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Any place that we can point people towards for you, maybe specific websites or social media or anything that you want to, I don't know if you have it off the top of your head.
You know what? A LinkedIn maybe would probably be the best way to get a hold of me. I do have a website, but it's kind of like it's a Wix website, so it's not.
What's the best place to find you on LinkedIn? What's your username over there?
Lucy Morra-Pedersen.
Very good.
Exactly as it is on the slide I think that you made. So.
Love it. Yeah. Go check her out. You're getting lots of love from people. Thanks, Holly. Holly says, thank you, Lucy, for sharing.
Thank you.
Just getting a whole bunch of shout outs.
Bye.
Very cool. Well, everybody, thank you so much. Lucy, you've actually, you did not know this going into this, but we're sort of in an interesting, which I will share with some of the audience members. Some people know you get the honor of being one of our last interviews that we have on your creative journey. We're doing a little bit of a shift that's going on. There's some shifting that's happening for myself into a new show that's in development. So you get to be our last interview today. A wonderful interview, which is amazing.
I'm honored.
Of course. Next week, Paul and I will be hosting our final episode of Your Creative Journey. That'll be in 2 weeks' time, where we'll get to tell you a little bit about the stuff that's coming up here in the future. But super grateful that you could be a part of this, Lucy.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
You bet. But I will tell you in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all those people that joined us on the live stream. Your creative journey is still available. And as a matter of fact, the best thing that you can do if you're watching this right now on YouTube, could you please do me a favor and like and subscribe? And if you enjoyed this conversation that Lucy and I had, please share this with other people so they get to know it. There's plenty of more stuff that's coming out on this channel. As a matter of fact, over the next several weeks, we're going to be uploading never before seen videos of past interviews that we did in the past before we started going live. So we've got some of those and clips from other shows as we get ready for the new, there's new stuff that's coming up in the next couple of months. I'll give more of that information on the next show. So thank you to everybody that was seeing it. If you could also do us a favor, this will help us in the long run as well. Go to yourcreativejourneypodcast.com where you can see past shows, or you can also do us a real solid favor, which is even if you're finding this show now, or if you're finding it years from now, it doesn't matter. Go to iTunes or to wherever, it's not even iTunes anymore, it's Apple Podcasts, excuse me. But go to anywhere that you consume podcasts, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. If you could just like, subscribe, or give a positive rating, that just helps us. So then that way people will still find the show, will find past episodes, and then find out the new stuff that's coming down the pike as well that we want to share. Big shout out to our audio engineer, Steve Erdeman. Thank you for all the audio editing that you do for us. And super grateful for all of you. Lucy, God bless you. I hope that you have a great visit there. To all of my folks out there in YouTube land, thanks for joining us. I'm going to end our live stream. Lucy, stick around so I can say a private goodbye to you in a second. God bless all of you guys. We will see you later. Angelica, Queen, all these people, you guys are rock stars. All right.
Thank you.
Have a great evening, everybody. And we will talk to you later as I get ready to end this live stream.
Bye, everyone.
All right, gang. Bye-bye for right now. As I get ready to end this thing. Oh, what am I doing? Here we go.